Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. Support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys. Head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Go,
Hey.
go, 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 go.
What is that? What did you just do?
I don't. It's a song.
Is it though?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a real song?
Yeah, it's like a big hit. You know, it was like on the radio.
Okay.
I think they danced to it at the Democratic National Convention.
Did they really?
I don't know.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I think I'm thinking of the Macarena.
You might be.
You.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name isn't. It's not that. It's Tom Ryman.
And we just watched John Dies at the End.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Jesus. You know, this is based off a book.
Is it?
What is that stuff, John?
The soy sauce? That stuff. I'm remembering things that haven't happened yet. We were chosen by the soy sauce. So you guys are what? Some kind of spiritualist exorcists?
It's something like that.
Awkward.
No, it's going well.
Listen.
I like this. I love this energy. Let's keep this up.
Yeah. Listen, folks, this is brought to you by podcast producers Harris and Millie.
Thank
Harris
you.
and Millie, thank you so much. They were very, when they asked, they were like, would it be weird to cover John Dies at the End, the movie? And I think I answered yeah, I might, but we'll do it.
Maybe a little
Why
bit,
not?
but I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
Jason didn't make the damn movie.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't ask Jason. We could have asked Jason if he wanted to be on this, but I was going to say, I feel like the answer would have been no.
I feel like he would have
right?
said
A hard
no. Yeah. You kind of have to say no.
What if he was like, yes, and then blasted the movie?
It's just a scathing review.
Yeah.
10 years of rage at this film. Finally
Has it
getting
been
out.
10 years?
I think so, yeah.
Fuck, man, that's fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So some context, I guess. John Dies at the End is, for people who don't know, I don't know why they wouldn't know.
No, there's probably some people who don't.
Yeah, it's a movie based off a book written by our pal, Jason Pargin.
Yeah, frequent Hypecast guest. He's always on here plugging his books. This was the first one.
I guess we should note the fourth John Dies at the End is coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, depending on when this episode goes up, it might be a matter of weeks.
Right. I have an advanced copy. I haven't been able to read it yet.
I've been so busy.
I know, me too. And the thing is that, so let's start there, is that if I didn't know Jason, I would be a big fan of Jason nonetheless in his books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you. I got to John Dies at the End late. I read John Dies at the End because of knowing Jason, right?
Yeah.
For the record, as opposed to, I think a lot of people read the book when it was in Pointless Waste of Time and stuff like that, right?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Know where,
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know he published it in chunks online initially, and then it became a book.
Yeah. Yeah. The point being that I really enjoy all three that I've read so far.
Mm-hmm.
They're a blast, and they made a movie with the director of fucking Bubba Hotep.
Yeah, and Phantasm, Don Coscarelli.
Phantasm. Yeah,
and you've probably, if you're a fan of the movie or of the book series, you've probably heard Jason tell this story. So I'll just tell a truncated, third-hand version of it. But from what he said, Jason got contacted by Don Coscarelli a few times and didn't believe him. He thought he was somebody fucking with him.
That's really funny.
Why? True, because he wanted to turn it into a movie. He's like, okay, yeah, sure, buddy, sure. You're the director of Phantasm. Okay.
Yeah, it is kind of wild because watching this movie again, because I hadn't seen this movie too many times. So rewatching it was kind of a treat.
Yeah,
this
no,
time
I
around.
hadn't seen this. I don't think I had seen this movie since it came out.
No shit.
Maybe once since then. It's not a movie I watch very often.
Right. Hold on. I'm looking up when did it actually come out? 2012. Wow. Yeah, 10 years. And what I was gonna say is rewatching it this time, trying to stay like completely removed from the context, you know?
Yeah.
Trying to look at it as a movie. One big note I have is this movie's really before its time. Does that make sense?
In a lot of ways, yeah. In a few ways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of have this new push for like Lovecraftian horror.
Yeah.
And like sort of the weird sci-fi. And that's like watching this again, not thinking about the book, just trying to think of it as a movie, which is so hard to do.
There's like a Stranger Things element to it as well.
Yeah, there is. And there's this there's this multiple dimension, this like upside down. There's this like, this weird sort of like the Lovecraftian horror where nothing is fully like it's all very abstract. The idea that people see other people in different ways as different people.
Yeah.
The monsters themselves are very Lovecraftian. And so like I don't know, that was the biggest thing that popped out this time for me was that this movie feels like it was made way more recently than it was.
Yeah.
At least to me.
Yeah, I did kind of get that. This feels like a movie that would have been on Netflix like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough because like I think if you're a fan of the book, this movie feels like it cuts a lot, right? Because it does,
and it squishes a lot into the back half. And we haven't said how we feel about this movie yet.
It's well, I'm trying to figure that out because like the way I feel about it, it was the first time I watched it, I was just fucking blown away.
Right, it's so excited.
Existing.
Yeah, just so excited that they made this story that Jason wrote into a movie with like Paul Giamatti in it and Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown's in there.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have any like initial thoughts of how you feel about this movie?
I feel like this movie is really uneven. I feel like and this is going to sound like okay, but like I feel like the first half is a lot better than the second half, and of course the first half it sticks the closest to the story, and then the second half is where it kind of goes off on its own. But
it skips a huge chunk. Shitload kidnaps them and then takes them to the mall. And that's where you can see the seam.
Yeah.
Like for people who haven't read the book, they skipped over a lot of stuff right there, if I recall. Right? Where
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's very disjointed at the end.
Yeah, it's basically the whole third act of this movie kind of falls apart for me.
Right.
So I don't really care for the last 20 minutes of this film. So it's not
really.
Yeah, so it's not as fun of a rewatch for me, you know, apart from it just being excited for Jason and how cool it is that this movie exists and how good most of it is.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Cuz it gets it's so over the top so fast that it's a little bit whiplashy. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas in it, which I think it works a little better in the novel because the novel you can sort of tell was written in chunks. Like there's actually like 2 or 3 different stories in the book.
Yes, all right. So that's the thing about this. I would argue that, and I have no like insider information on this. I'm just saying this. I think this should be a TV series.
Yes. Yeah. Of course.
That is sort of where this story would best work, is because the biggest issue with this movie is that it's what you're saying. It has to condense. It has to condense a story that's really, really dense in the book to a movie. And so the result is that it's kind of it's kind of confusing at the end. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait, why are we at this mall? What is the point of this? And so it has to kind of lean on the idea of being more chaotic and a little more random
Yeah.
Which I actually think does ultimately work okay. Because I was thinking about the character Dave, and how the fun part about Dave is that, God, we haven't even described what this movie's about. I just realized. It's about a drug, for people who haven't read the book, called soy sauce, that when you take it, basically like taps you into an otherworldly plane of existence. Essentially,
yeah. You remember how in Ghostbusters they say that like Dana Barrett's apartment building is an antenna for the supernatural. Like that's what the drug does to you. Like you become in tuned, and he describes it really cool in the book. And they use a lot of what Jason wrote is in this movie verbatim.
Yeah, it's narrated, so that helps.
But that's basically how he describes it. It's this drug that turns you into an antenna for just every different shade of reality that's around us at any given moment. So you can start to see shit. Time exists as a flat circle, I guess. Like you start Dr. Manhattaning your way through stuff, which is a really fun bit with John where he calls Dave like 20 times. So he's like, I think you're going to get calls from me for 9 years.
At one point he's dead.
Yeah.
He calls him.
Yeah.
And then there's little things like the cop, who I love the cop in this. Glenn Turman is the actor. Mm-hmm. He is my favorite performance in this whole thing.
Him and Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti is great. I mean, I think everybody does really good in this. That's one of the big things I like about this movie is I think the performances are really good. But at one point the cop goes to shoot him, and he basically teleports to the factory in which the bullet was being made and briefly distracts the guy making the bullet so that a fly lands on the bullet so that the bullet misfires and doesn't kill him. Like there's shit like that in this. And that's the soy sauce doing it. And it's really, the plot is basically just like this very gory horror film, this very bizarre film that's just this guy Dave and his friend John, and John takes the soy sauce first, and Dave is just trying to figure out what the fuck he's on.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he's telling the story to Paul Giamatti in the future, who's a reporter, trying to expose this soy sauce drug. And it's just kind of a series of really fucking bizarre things happening that are, I would say, in a good way, undercut by comedic beats as well, on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't say this movie's trying to be scary. It's a comedy. It's a horror comedy.
Yeah, it's like it's the director of Bubba Hotep, like we mentioned.
Right,
and it's
Bubba Hotep isn't that scary.
It's much closer in tone to Bubba Hotep than Phantasm.
Yeah, and it's trying to create these moments, and this is why it's great source material for it, that are just fucking weird, where it's like a meat monster that attacks them, and then they have to make a phone call and like wait there with the meat monster while they make the phone call, because the meat monster has the wrong person. Like stuff like that, that's just really fucking weird, that feels like it belongs closer to today's sensibilities, right?
Yeah.
Like in the days of like Psycho Gorman, you know, like...
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it feels really like before its time for that reason. Doug Jones is in this, not in an outfit, which is kind of fun.
He's just Doug Jones.
Yeah, he's just Doug Jones. But this is all to say, what I was getting at before is that the character of John, who, by the way, apparently that actor was in Deep Blue Sea 2, so I'm going to have to watch that again.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The character of John is already like a loose cannon. That's like how he is. He's just a weirdo, right?
Yeah.
And they establish that really quickly. I guess what I was saying is that because he's like that, you don't know what's like actual supernatural and what's just John being a fucking maniac.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the tone of the whole movie, is that like, because the book explains so much more and the movie doesn't have time to, so it kind of falls on that idea, which is that it's like just weird shit is happening. Why is it happening? I don't know, man.
Yeah, parallel dimension. Yeah, it all just comes down to there's people in a parallel universe trying to cross over into our world. And
I think obviously the book, it's more fun to have all the details. But I do think if you watch this movie without the context of the book, I think it's not that disorienting.
I don't
because
probably
of the tone.
not. Yeah, probably not. There's the chain of events in the movie is not difficult to follow. It
Right.
just stuff just seems really rushed and out of nowhere. But Bubba
It's
Hotep
hard 'cause,
kind of
again,
feels the
it's-
same way. So
It's hard because with knowledge of the book, I'm just like, oh, there were so many other things that were really fun from the book that you could add.
here's the I don't want to spend too much more time just talking about the differences between the book and the movie, but the one that really confounds me is that they changed the dog's name.
Right. What
Yeah.
was the dog's name in the book?
The dog's name is Molly in the book. In the
Molly,
movie,
and
it's
they turned
Barkley.
into Barkley.
Which, sure.
I remember Jason thinking that was a fine change.
Yeah, no, it's just I just wonder
not that
why they
he's-
did it. Yeah.
I don't know. I did. Let's see. Yeah, the director also wrote the screenplay. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he had a dog named Barkley
I guess so, yeah.
at some point. That is very odd. That is a very odd change. But in general, so it is really tough to think about this movie out of the context of the book.
Yeah.
But I guess we should.
I guess
Right.
yeah.
Because
We don't
was this movie?
review books here, Dave.
I know.
I think this movie's about 90 or 100 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not too long.
See, this is so hard to think of it outside of the book because there's things this movie does that I was really happy about in terms of I didn't think they were going to do that. Like they do a lot of more like one of the big things I noticed from this movie is that there are so many locations. There's so many really, really well done, great looking locations in this movie. And this is a fairly indie film, right?
As far as I know, yeah. I mean, Don
CGI in
Coscarelli has never rolled with a huge budget on anything, so.
Right, the CGI really shows its budget, I would say.
Yeah. But it's fine.
No, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is they still felt it necessary to do some of the they didn't cut it for efficiency. And they didn't cut it based off we need to condense locations. There's some just very grand looking locations, stuff like that church and even the cave and the abandoned mall. Those are all really tough locations.
Yeah.
And they could have condensed this a lot more.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Yeah, I think he meaning the director, Coscarelli, I think what he wanted to preserve the sort of the weirdest stuff from the story.
Right.
So the meat monster and talking on the bratwurst and the whole gimmick of two characters seeing somebody a different way, and that's how they know they're a ghost, which turns into a nice sort of plant and payoff in the movie.
I really like that concept.
Yeah, it's cool. It's so cool. And he does that. Jason does that in a, I think in each book he does something like that, where it sort of plays with the way that you're reading it.
Yeah, perception. I know there's I don't want to spoil too much of his other books, but for example, he talks about the idea of, I think in the third book, he talks about the idea of
statue.
memories being planted. Yeah. The snowman statue.
The snowman statue. Yeah.
They keep talking about, the characters keep talking about a snowman statue that they refer to as being always there. Oh yeah, that snowman statue has been there the whole time.
They refer to
But
it offhand in a description. And so after a while you start noticing it.
You start noticing that it keeps changing its location, but the characters don't realize it.
Yeah.
Because it's planting the memory of oh yeah, that snowman statue we always had in our trailer. You know, or oh yeah, we passed by the abandoned building with that snowman statue in front of it. You know, the snowman statue. And so that's concept. And this, again, this is the stuff that feels ahead of its time, which is that it's more sci-fi-y. It's more about trying to create this more Star Trek-y heady concepts.
I think it's I think it's still firmly in horror. I mean, it shares a lot with
horror.
Yeah, exactly. It's cosmic horror.
Yeah, and that's what and that's something we're only just playing with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to do the stuff that's in the books visually, I would say.
Yeah, there's one thing that did get left out was the idea that one of the characters gets stricken from existence entirely. So you'll see this character in like one or two scenes earlier in the book, but then they just forget about him. So it seems like a mistake at first.
Right.
So they couldn't really do that in the movie. That would be a lot trickier, but they still kept like a lot of those ideas, like seeing the person two different ways depending on which character's seeing them. A lot of like the cosmic horror sort of thought experiments that are in the narration.
Right.
Like the beginning thing where it's basically the ship of Theseus, I think, riddle about the axe.
Yeah, about the axe, which you chop off a guy's head with an axe. And then you break the handle in the process, get the handle replaced, and then you fight a monster on your kitchen sink, and you break the head of the axe, get that replaced, and then the guy comes back from the dead and says, "That's the axe that killed me." And the question is he right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that, and that actually plays directly into, I believe, a reveal in the book that's not in this movie, right?
Right, that Dave is a copy, which they don't. Yeah. They don't do in the movie.
And then in This Book is Filled with Spiders, he talks about the thing that I know was a Cracked article about how transporting or teleportation, one of the theories is that it kills you and recreates you every time with your own memories.
It's the Prestige, basically.
Yeah.
You're killing a clone, or you're cloning yourself every time you go through the transporter in Star Trek, and it's killing you.
Right. And so, again, going back to like why we have to talk about this in the context of the book is that this movie was made in 2012. And I do say it is ahead of its time, but it's not. It's almost like if it was made now, I think they would be a lot more bold about some of the concepts. Mm-hmm. Like this should be a series, and they would do this stuff, and they would have I think they would feel more comfortable doing this kind of weird, the idea that like, Dave ends up being a fucking copy. Yeah. And then we just keep going. And I think it's like stuff like Rick and Morty, like
yes. Yeah.
Rick and Morty basically took that idea. I don't know if they knew they were taking it from that book. But it's the same basic idea where it's like Rick and Morty go to a new universe and then they bury themselves. Like it's those things where it's like, nowadays, I think our storytelling, our ability to like, understand these concepts has gotten better. Mm-hmm. That we're just more accepting of them. So, like watching this movie, and not if I could erase Jason's book from my head, watching this movie, I feel like my impression would be like, this is touching on a lot of really cool shit, mm-hmm. and then it feels like it kind of swerves at the last minute.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I think it kind of rushes to the end in the last act.
Yeah. It's a little like, I guess you're not ready for that yet, but your kids are going to love it.
Yeah.
But 10 years. Because, it introduces these really, like that first sequence with the meat monster, mm-hmm. Which is, it's John and Dave going to this girl's house who John clearly is just trying to bone.
Yeah.
And, she says her boyfriend has been harassing her. And then, of course, she adds, my boyfriend's been dead for like 2 months. So they go to the house. They go to the basement. And then he starts describing the girl and how cute she is. And Dave realizes he's describing a different person than him.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, what do you think she looks like? And they realize and they're like, oh, fuck. And then it's genuinely creepy, her being on the stairs. Like this, I think actually works almost better as a movie than in book form, because this is a really good visual moment.
Yeah.
Where she's just standing there and they're like, hey, we're having a little bit of a problem. We're both seeing you as a different person. And then she explodes into snakes.
She just bursts into snakes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that sort of shit, it's like, it's the idea that demons aren't just like, this is a problem I think a lot of movies run into when they deal with stuff like demons, is that like demonic forces should be more surreal, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea of seeing someone as two different people, or like having your memory of somebody erased. Mm-hmm. That shit is so cool to me as like the work of demonic forces, and it rarely makes its way into movies.
Yeah, and that's again, a testament to how unique Jason's brain is when he writes this shit. It's just this stuff is so high concept, and it's really impressive how much of it is in the movie.
Right, and it's still not enough for me.
Yeah, I want more. Yeah, I want more. But it is
like, for example, the memory stuff we're mentioning isn't actually in the movie.
It's not. It's one of the cooler things in the stories, but it's hard to do. But I'd love to see him try. You know.
Right, and you'd need longer movie. This is an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah,
which should be enough, but like it's such a dense book with this stuff that it's hard to take it and strip it down. You know, you look at like adapting a book like Jurassic Park. It's like you can look at Jurassic Park and go, okay, yeah, we know what we got to strip it down to. Here are the beats,
yeah.
This is such a harder thing to adapt that it's really surprising that it's like it's delightfully surprising that it was attempted. And for what they did, honestly, I think it came out very well. With the limitations of it being an hour and 40 minutes.
With like a micro budget.
Right. And so again, like my impression of it not knowing the book would be like, this movie is really cool, but it feels like there's more. Yeah. It feels like it's a story that was compacted and therefore a bit disjointed.
Yeah, make this
specifically in that third act.
Make this into a Netflix series.
Yeah, they should. They really should.
They really should, yeah.
I think it would do really well now, you know?
Especially with what they're, with Stranger Things, and there's been a couple of other shows that are similar. Like Supernatural, you know? Is kind of, has a little bit in common with this.
A little bit.
It just seems like this would do really well as a show right now.
Right.
I'm sure Jason's been trying to make that point.
Yeah. Jason's listening to this and he's like, yes, I agree. I agree that my book should be turned into a Netflix show. I wanted another thing about this movie. And this is weird because I actually feel this way about the book too. And I can't quite put my finger on this. And I think I've said this about some other movies that we've watched, is I feel nostalgic watching this, which is weird considering that's 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I think it's because like in the movie, they're like the radio is old. Like it feels like it takes place more in like the early 2000s, which I guess it probably does.
Well, that's what that would have been when he wrote it. Yes.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
So there's like this weird nostalgia. I think it's because these characters are the exact age I was at this exact time, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And it's a lot of like driving around, hanging out with friends, going to parties, outdoor like hick parties.
It's a directionless existence.
Yeah. I think that's what it is there's this like weird feeling of nostalgia just watching the characters interact in the environment.
Yeah.
Shit. I lost the thing I was going to say.
You're talking about it feeling nostalgic for this film.
I know that's what I was saying and then I forgot. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
We can move on.
Sure.
We can move on.
Yeah.
Shit. This is tough.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what other aspects of this movie we could talk about.
It's so hard because it really is like I tried again to remove myself mentally like from any context of this movie. And the thing is that I actually didn't take too many notes because I agree with you what you said about the ending feeling rushed, right?
Yeah.
But I think in combination with the nostalgia I just said, and then the fact it's got to come into play, the fact that I know Jason and I know this book, is that I really just sort of enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
It also comes down to I kind of want to see who's the cinematographer. I really think this movie looks good.
It does.
Think the sets and the cinematography, that Chinese restaurant, there's something about it that's just I just kind of like existing in it.
Yeah, it does.
Which plays into why I think it would make a good TV show.
Yeah. No.
Holy shit.
What's that?
It's the cinematographer for It Follows. Us. Under the Silver Lake.
Okay,
and,
that explains a lot.
And Old.
There it is. The coup de grace.
This is holy shit. This This cinematographer has done a bunch of M. Night Shyamalan. And yeah, It Follows. Holy shit. That makes so much sense. Because this is amazingly shot, I thought.
Yeah, it's really very impressive with the way it looks. Like you were saying already about the locations and the way the shots are lit. Like the fact that it's shot by the same person that did It Follows, and more for me, Under the Silver Lake, because I think Under the Silver Lake is closer in tone to this movie, where it takes like some of these locations and casts them in a way that makes them a little more sinister, even though everything's still kind of silly. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
That's really surprising because I would say this movie, again, it's surprisingly big for an indie film. And it is very well shot. It really is like, if there was like we've sort of said it, the weak spot is the script, the adaptation. It's fucking tough.
Yeah.
But as like, I think I really, out of context, I think I'm gonna land on the fact that I think I really would have loved this movie if I saw it without knowing the book. And I'd love to hear from people who perhaps watched this movie having not read the book.
Yeah, I haven't read the story. Yeah.
And I think what it is that it's the scope and the weirdness that I will forgive any, like, the plot feeling disjointed, which of course, knowing the book, I know why. In exchange for, like, if I saw this movie in 2012, I think completely removed from context, I'd be like, what a fucking weird movie.
Yeah.
We need to make more movies like this. It's pretty and it's bizarre, and I think the humor balances itself out, because that's another thing, is that like this style of humor, I remember hearing they were going to adapt it and being like, I don't know if they're going to get the humor right, because like it will read different than it's performed, right?
Yeah, and that was another cool thing about watching the movie, is seeing it's such a dopey thing to say, but just seeing how they translated it, you know, like how John is in the movie as opposed to how he like reads on the page.
Right. And I would say he was completely different in the book to me. And this worked. He's a little more broy in the movie, and I think part of that's because the actor seems a little more broy.
But yeah, I think they got the actor who plays Dave is this sort of even more deadpan version of Topher Grace, if that's possible.
If that makes sense. And the tone in general, I think they nailed for the most part. There's a little with the character of Dave. It's hard for him not to come off a little edgelordy in a few places. Yeah. But I think that's I can't tell if that's on purpose or not, because he sort of represents like the cynical, kind of shitty 20-something-year-old.
Yeah,
like when he's at the party, he's rolling his eyes at the magic and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's seen it all, and he thinks he's smarter than everyone.
Exactly, like he's like 20 whatever, and he acts like he's fucking 80.
Yeah,
yeah. I would say the one character that doesn't, it's a fine performance, but doesn't get enough is Amy. Amy, I think, is heavily cut in a way that
she's not even the same character. Like she's the main victim of the movie's like efficiency, I guess.
Yeah, and I would say that if I was watching this without knowing about it as a book, I would feel like her character barely has a personality.
Yeah,
because it's by the end they're just like together, and it's like, because she vanishes from the movie. She's at the party. She vanishes from the party and comes back in the truck. And she's like ready to be his girlfriend. Yeah. And it's
really strange.
Yeah, exactly.
And
and that's definitely a big part that was cut from the book.
Yeah, it's a different character at this part in the book.
Yeah.
Like Amy doesn't come into the story during the part that's in the movie.
Yeah.
So they just combined her. She's in like the second half of the book. So they just combined her with the character that was in the first half, and so it just sort of comes off like a character that doesn't really have much to her, not like much personality. So yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I think ultimately where you started on this, which is that the first half really works and then it kind of falls apart in the second half.
A little.
I really like the ideas of the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I like where this movie ends up going, which is like you never think you're going to watch them fight a fucking weird Cthulhu.
Yeah, like an internet troll Cthulhu monster.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so like
I love the alternate dimension where everybody's just wearing these weird masks.
yeah. Oh, that's
And
good. I remember watching the trailer for this
Yeah.
and being like, God, if I didn't know the context, I'd be like, I have to watch this movie because it's so fucking weird. It goes in so many directions. That like that's the real, like, it has these gore moments and these monsters and this meat monster and then this like eyes wide shut dimension, which is it's that, I guess, again, that's what I mean where it's like I'm really glad they adapted this into a movie.
Yeah.
This does in 2012. This paved the way, I think, to stuff like Rick and Morty, and even like Mandy and the weirder stuff. Not to say that had this not existed, those wouldn't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so like it's such a delightful, weird story that it's like I'm so happy they adapted it, but at the same time, it's so almost impossible to adapt it and like make it and make it make sense without making a mini series or a TV show from it.
Yeah.
So like, but of course, who's going to make a mini series or TV show initially for something like this?
Right.
It's
this thing that's so out there, and that's a sort of issue that you hear sometimes when it's like, well, why there's not more like Lovecraftian adaptations, and it's like, well, because cosmic horror is hard to film because it's so internal, and it's like certain parts of the novel it's like that never make it into adaptations because it's like hard to translate it. So it's just makes this movie even more all the more impressive for how much it actually did. How many of those ideas that they made visually and that they work in the movie.
And a lot of it also comes from Jason's narration and his ability to tell a cosmic horror story, which is why, it's all to say, like, if this was made into a TV show, I think it would really fucking be extremely popular. Yeah. Especially now with, like, if you're going to do any cosmic horror, this is a very good candidate for it, for the exact reasons that you're saying, which is like, it's these intangible concepts, I think, have the best shot of working in this story.
Yeah.
I think in part of the reason why is simply because it has a narrator. Like you just need someone to explain this shit to be able to say out loud what's going on as well.
Yeah. There are a couple of parts where I think they should have cut the narration in the movie. The part that sticks out to me is when Dave is at the party and the Jamaican guy, Robert Marley, is showing him the magic tricks. And when he's describing Dave's dream to him, like,
you don't need that.
We don't need to hear Dave think, oh shit, he's right. We can tell from his face that he's right.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's like there's some things you need to maybe cut and just let it play visually, but you're also I do agree that having the narration in there for other parts of the movie is super helpful to get these ideas across. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to like forget to have narration for most of the film, but yeah, I know what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the ending because I think the ending is
fun.
It's one of my favorite parts in the book as well, because I remember this described in the book. And it was another one where I was like, I can't believe they actually did that ending. Because it really is fucking weird. Yeah. Like, for an ending, it's the most anticlimactic ending you could have.
Yeah.
Which is that they're playing basketball and these beings from another dimension, or they find a wormhole and go through it. And then they're told that they're like saviors. Yeah. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to go back and get some stuff to help you. And then they just sort of roll their eyes and leave.
They just leave. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is so random to have at the end of this one.
And it plays over the end credits too.
Yeah.
So it's just this.
But it sums it up perfectly. Yeah. It's why I think it's what the appeal of these book series are in general.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, it's I would compare it to Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's slackers dealing with these unimaginable horrors and concepts and just not caring.
Yeah.
And it being kind of a grift.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. Interestingly, Ghostbusters is like, it's a Cthulhu. Like, that's a Lovecraft god that they're dealing with, Gozer. So it is like cosmic horror from through the eyes of like just blue collar grifters.
Right.
So it really is like very, very close to Ghostbusters.
I imagine it was one of Jason's inspirations. I've never asked
sure.
Jason, because why would I? But it is like the tone, that combination, and I don't know. Knowing Jason, maybe he wasn't thinking about it at all. He was probably just writing this, for fun.
And it's also I don't want to speak for you, but that's like, I feel like that's a question writers hate getting.
I'm going to speak for Jason.
No, I meant for you, like with your screenplays and stuff, but like, where do you get your ideas is sort of like I don't know.
Yeah, you're speaking for yourself as a writer too. No, you're right. No, I just think like it's funny because me and Adam did the 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Which was a web series written the same way Jason wrote John Dies at the end, which is to say that she just kept writing chapters. Mm-hmm. And with 50 Shades of Grey, you can absolutely tell. Mm-hmm. With John Dies at the end, you can't.
You can tell a little in the sense that it's more episodic than it is like
the actual book. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess what I mean is that in the end, it all feels. It's more. I guess it has to do with the subject matter. Mm-hmm. Like 50 Shades of Grey is a story that actually would lend itself to someone thinking ahead. And like that's not a story that can be episodic because it's just boring as shit. Whereas this like I don't know works for that, and that's all to say. I don't think Jason was thinking much about like, oh, how will this be perceived as an entire piece of art, right? When this becomes a movie, like I'm sure he never thought this would ever become a movie, and what that would be. Which that's the thing I was gonna say before that I forgot. My favorite thing that I never in a million years thought would be in this movie was the dick doorknob.
The dick doorknob. Yep.
Yeah. So happy the dick doorknob's in there because that's a visual effect.
Yep.
So the what we're describing is they're trapped in the basement. We really didn't describe the plot of this movie.
It's fine.
And John goes to leave, and the doorknob turns into a human penis, and he goes, that door cannot be opened. And that's the joke. The joke is their homophobia like prevents them from opening the door because it has a dick for the doorknob. And that's, I thought, the funniest fucking joke that is made it into this fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I did not think. One thing I wish was in the movie that's in the book is the radio. The radio stuff. When he's on the soy sauce, he starts listening to the radio, and the radio is just like the most vile, hate-filled thing ever. Just because the idea is like your perception changes, and like you're letting these demonic forces in.
Yeah, they do like a chat log with Amy. That's a similar thing where it's like evil shit starts creeping in.
Yeah,
they kind of do a little bit of it in the movie where he's on the phone with the priest.
Yes, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
The one image from the book that really stuck with me that I wish would have made it in the movie is when he's driving, or like I think he's walking into a McDonald's or something, and he's seeing the Ronald McDonald poster as Ronald McDonald like desperately eating his own intestines, and he's like weeping while he's doing it. Like that image, I was like, fucking shit.
Right.
And that's what he's seeing, and nobody else is seeing it that way.
Right, and this is the stuff that, like, the movie, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And
the movie gets some of it in there, but not, there's a lot of ideas in this.
It needed to be more of a mini-series.
Yes.
Because, like, I think, like, the idea of the world under soy sauce in the book was so fucking surreal and demonic and weird that, like, I just wanted more of that. But I understand, like, this movie had to cram so much into so little time.
It does. Even the cool bit with where he takes Paul Giamatti out to the parking lot to show him the monster, and he has to he can only see it out of the corner of his eye. Like
Right.
that whole, it's a great fucking movie and I love it. That whole Argentine horror movie Terrified is like based on that idea. Where
Right.
it's like it's a parallel dimension full of these beings, but you can't really see them except from a very specific perspective.
Right. Which is a cool idea.
And it's a cool idea, and it's creepy as shit.
It's so many cool ideas.
Yeah.
It really is that. It's so many ideas that don't have enough room to breathe, and so it's still very entertaining.
Yeah.
But like you can definitely see like beyond this movie the potential.
Yeah. This movie
Yeah,
almost
and
feels
of
like
course-
a pilot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like a proof of
God, it
concept
does.
almost.
Yes, that's a really good way of putting it. And then, of course, the reveal that we haven't talked about, Paul Giamatti is describing how, he describes how someone called him the N-word, and he's like, wait, what? And he realizes that Paul Giamatti perceives himself as being black, but he's not seeing it. He's seeing Paul Giamatti because Paul Giamatti is actually dead. And this is Paul Giamatti represents what he imagined a schlubby reporter to look like.
Yeah, it's he basically, because he was on the sauce, so he has this like supernatural link. He conjured a spirit version of Paul Giamatti's character Arnie based on what he thought Arnie looked like by hearing his voice. So he thought Arnie looked like Paul Giamatti when in actuality he was an older black man.
And it's a real Vanilla Sky moment where
Yep.
like he's like, but I don't want to not exist.
Yeah.
And like has to grapple with that idea
Yeah,
that he
it's-
is actually a manifestation brought on by his mind.
It's
Dave's mind.
It's like a genuinely tragic sequence because
It's a-
obviously
it's-
Paul Giamatti's so good.
Yeah, it's a joke that's also in Bob's Burgers,
Yeah.
where she has to say goodbye to her horse, her imaginary horse, who then is like, wait, what? You're getting rid of me, and has like an existential crisis.
Yeah.
The horse is wearing jean shorts. He's like, oh, why am I'm wearing these jean shorts? What's happening?
Oh man. But it's not
it's
not
great.
played for laughs in this movie though.
No, it's not at all.
The end of it is kind of where he's like, I don't accept, and he's just like, boop, out of existence.
Right.
But like when he's going through it, it's like, no, I've got kids. I'm going on vacation to Atlantic City. I've got tickets. Like he's like,
Yeah,
it's
he's
like
so sad.
It's really tragic.
I'm so curious. This is something I want to ask Jason about because Paul Giamatti is the producer of this.
Yeah.
And was Paul Giamatti like a big fan? Because that's delightful.
That was
if
my
that's true.
that was my understanding. Yeah.
That's great. That's
It's
so
like
good.
this is this is like the one for me stuff that he likes to do.
Right.
So he apparently is into like weird off the wall shit.
That's so good.
Yeah.
He does so good. Again, the big shout out to Glenn Turman has the reason Glenn Turman is the one who like really popped out. It's the performance of when he says, "You're probably wondering what I'm doing with this gas can,"
And the way he
does
points
this little
to it.
point.
Yeah.
This little point, and it's like, oh, you nailed it. You nailed the tone. The
perfect,
entire tone of this is like summed up in that moment.
Yeah.
It's so good. I forget. Did the book expand on that character a lot?
Not too much more. I think he's in maybe
Okay,
I think
'cause-
he's in maybe one more scene.
It's an interesting character because there's this implied idea which they get really they figure out really well, where it's like when he starts helping them, you don't feel like it's weird because he's clearly seen some shit
Yeah.
and he makes that clear. Like I kind of liked how that worked out in this.
It's like he's got his own movie going on.
Exactly.
And they sort of, that's, we mentioned the ending of the movie where they go to the alternate dimension with these weird Glebe Glorbs who are like, you are the chosen ones. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Right.
There's an aspect of that in the book version of that, because if you remember, there's like a Scooby-Doo gang that actually goes into the portal. And,
Oh, you're right.
And they
come out and they're like clearly went on this adventure.
And they had their whole adventure.
Oh my God. That
John
was
and
what-
Dave are just playing basketball.
I forgot about that. That was so fucking funny.
Yeah.
See, this is the shit. Like, I need this. I need them to have been able to spend a half hour just on that bit.
Yeah.
Like just on, and that's what I mean. Is
one
like this.
bit.
Yeah, this needs to be a series. You could do 5 seasons of just this book, in my opinion. Just this book.
There's like 3 main stories in the first book, so that's
And so that's what it comes down to is, again, like if I watch this in a vacuum, I think I'd come out of it liking the movie and being like, what a weird idea. There needs to be more weird movies like this. But like, there is an implied bigness that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, like, I'm so glad this movie exists. I need like a series.
Yeah, for sure.
This. And then, of course, you work in the other books as you go.
Yeah. Listen up, Netflix.
Yeah. I know you're listening to us.
Yeah, of course they do. I don't have anything else to say, Dave.
Neither do I. What a weird fucking experience.
Yeah.
We could have said no to this.
We could have,
bravely
but we didn't.
were like, no, we'll review anything, baby.
We soldiered ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like, if you haven't watched this movie, you're going to get nothing from this.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Sorry.
It's the review of two people who know the author of the book the movie was based off of.
Yeah, so
it's so hard to be critical.
Yeah, it is really, it does really break your brain.
Yeah.
It's like watching something it's not exactly the same, but it's like when I watch an episode of Some More News that I've written, for instance, I can't watch it the same way that I
you
watch
can't watch
another.
it critically. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And we didn't do anything to make this movie.
Yeah, no,
we
nothing.
had no association with it. We could have blasted this movie if we wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah. But we didn't. Yeah.
I think we're all set.
All right. Fine. Listen, who made us do this?
Harris and
Monsters made this. Harris and Millie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was a delight. If people want us to review more like movies that our friends did, well then you need to start letting our friends make movies.
Yeah, honestly, it's as simple as that.
Yeah. I'll review like someone greenlight a movie me and Tom make, and then we'll review it.
Yeah.
And we'll be very fair in our review of the movie we wrote.
Yeah. Fair and balanced.
Anyway.
That's our motto. Ours and nobody else's.
Yeah. This was through our Patreon. Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. You go on there. Yeah, for $5 a month, you get access to a bunch of exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. Mm-hmm. We also watch movies with our patrons every Friday night. We could watch this. We could honestly watch this on a Friday night.
We probably should. We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you'll find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, masks, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So check that out.
Yeah, baby.
But like in a certain perspective, like turn your head and like look at it from the corner of your eye. Then you'll see the store.
Yeah.
Then you'll see it.
That's the only way you'll see it.
It'll manifest.
As a dick.
Mm-hmm.